execute request, and then if response was successful, target dot negotiate, and we haven't really thought out what this even means, but we'll leave it in there for a second. And we're going to do the same thing for repair, because now is the time to deep dive in these things and added functionality and really make the game playable. So, negotiate, just out of curiosity, if we looked at base monster, and the zombie, we weren't really doing anything, gender, so we're probably going to rely on the base monster to fight, repair. I have to change this a little bit because we don't have a, like when we heal, I'll show this. When we heal, we've got restore health, and when we fight, we've got take damage. So in repair, what we really want is something that's like restore hit points, right? But we don't have that exposed. Or for negotiate, we want something else to happen. We don't really have a way to do that in the game yet, but that's what this week is for. But one problem at a time. Fight Carl. 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 Negotiate Carl. Boom. All right. Gary does not have enough stamina turn to complete this action. So Gary, being a jerk, says, "Well, I don't have enough. I can't negotiate with the guy. I guess I'll have to fight him again." So, so this already works. And now that I'm at 0 stamina, let's try to fight Carl again. Gary begins to move and then collapses. So we're checking a few things now. We're checking to see if we've got enough stamina to complete the action in terms of a greater than or equal to our current stamina. And then also doing a 0 check to say, are you exhausted? So our state has changed. So as soon as Gary hits 0, Gary becomes exhausted. So one check is being done in our hive mind for is out of play, so if they die, and then other checks are being done inside of our base actor as to whether or not they're exhausted or disabled, or if they have enough stamina left. Okay, so far so good on that front. Let's go into our player factory. Okay. So these were always arbitrary, but it ends up being a reasonable number, 140 health or whatever. Let's take that down. So I got 14 health. Let's look at Beth. Beth also has 14 health. Now let's fight Beth. Look Beth. Fight Beth. Look Beth. So here's our other part of it, right? So Beth died. I hit her for 8 damage. She went down to 6. Hit her for 8 more damage, and then she's out of play. So it'd be nice to get that message that when Beth dies, hey, tell the player you just killed somebody. And this is where Canadian 1010 yesterday really hit the nail on the head as far as having a pub subsystem. Ideally, instead of having this, if we go into the hive mind, or even the renderer, the way to do it would be to, you could have like a string array, or array of strings that would have all these commands, or I'm sorry, all these messages that resulted from the command. That'd be one way to do it, but what you're going to find is you're going to really pollute this space, here, with all these conditions and all of these stacking of messages. And even if you don't do it here necessarily, you have to do it in the render. So you have to be doing that somewhere. So what the PubSub pattern would allow you to do is inside of the hive mind, what you'd want to do is you'd want to have this response be published out to whoever was listening. And so presumably that'd be like on a room level. So the response would automatically go to the sender. They'd get their own specialized message, and preferably they'd say like you. But then you'd want to say, hey, give me a list of everyone that's in the room and send this message to them. Right? So every user that's in the room, send this message. I don't know if we can do that in kind of a hacky way. Probably not. So we check state on both the sender and the target. And this is what's going to say, hey, the person died this round. If they died, set them to be disabled. So we'll have to think. Probably next week, I think, we'll make this. We'll implement a PubSub pattern so that we can really take a look at how these events could be processed. And it's going to be a great one for next week. But let's see what else we can do in the meantime. Let's see. Let's add in a few more commands, right? Because we have the ability to get inventory. If I look at the program, right? So I could, oops, let me go and stop this guy. So I could right here add inventory test charm. I can get rid of this guy because I know set state works. But so what I want right now is I want the ability to do two things. I want to be able to look at the room, and I also want to be able to get something off the ground and add it to my inventory. So let's go back over into our hide mind. Let's go into our seed. This is kind of where we're getting all of our dummy stuff. And I added a test hammer and test gloves. Let's go ahead and do this. Room.gameObjects.add new test charm. And so for our flyweight pattern, all we care about are these lists of game objects. So we're already seeing in terms of the flyweight pattern that it doesn't take a lot of mental acuity to use this. You can just say just add a bunch of stuff to the room. Just do it. I don't even care what happens next, right? Because you're going to be confident that your rendering engine is going to take a look at all the things that it has and it's going to say, okay, now where do I put these? So I've added 3 things. Let's go back over to our program, and then I say draw room. So I got players and monsters, and then I say, output the monsters, blah blah blah. So let's do, and let's just say output the players. And I forget who it was last time. In one of our talks we talked about the good and the bad way to do this, and somebody had mentioned string join. Because right now what we're doing, it's going to have a dangling comma at the end of the line, and we don't want that. So a good way to do that is to do string dot join. And when you see this, it's going to say concatenates all the elements of a string array using a specified separator between each element. So that's going to be a string separator. And so I can do that. And another comma, and I can say, I can take any one of these, right? So even though it says string array, I can give it a numerable of t, as long as the t, and that constraint on the end, it says a numerable of t as long as t is a string. So it's kind of like, might as well have been string all the whole time. But it's really important because it also shows you how to place constraint on certain things. So then I'm going to say, oops, where's my list? Alright, so what happens when I do that? This is going to work, and it's going to be wrong. And now you're like, but why is it going to be wrong? Okay, so I'll show you why it's going to be wrong. And I'll just take this. I'll put it here because we don't. Oops. What was I doing? Oh yeah. So what I actually want to do, oops, sorry, that was probably a little confusing to watch. But what I was going to do is do console.writeLine. So I want to clean this up and do a string.join on monsters. So that's going to be wrong, and I'll show you. Because everything in C# is an object, and everything that's an object has a toString method. So we're actually outputting the type here, and we don't want that. So you can see below we've already kind of done this. But what we really want to do is we want to select the name. And so then what that allows us to do is we're projecting. So whenever we do this little lambda statement, we're saying, hey, project the select statement over this entire collection and return the result. So the result, as you can see, if I hover over it, I am saying that select is an extension method. It just happens to be built into link. And it's going to return an IEnumerable. You see it says monster select monster string. You can ignore all that for a second, honestly. And do you see in the IntelliSense? I don't know if you can actually zoom in this closely, but see how it says it's going to say extension IEnumerable int. So it's actually very impressive. But the IntelliSense is changing dynamically. So hit points is an int. So my IntelliSense changes to show me an int. And then I turn it back over to the name. I hover over select, changes the string. So it's very, very smart. And I only bring this up because as you're coding, if you see times when the IntelliSense changes and you perceive it to be like this static, immutable, like just kind of helper text, know that the IDE, Visual Studio, is actually very, very smart, and it can do these things on the fly. And then when you put ReSharper on top of that, it's even more powerful. So it's really kind of this organic environment that you're using. Okay. And I think